voice seemingly female calls to you. She acknowledges your burden and says she wishes to fill the emptiness within you. Next, you're walking down a hall, bleeding, exhausted. Out of nowhere, a creature appears behind you. You run until you're cornered and killed. You wake up beneath a red sky, facing a tower. Something behind you tells you to leave, to go to the Neuro Tower. You have no memory of what that is or where you are. As you wander, you encounter strange people. One reads your mind out loud, another warns you to speak to the angel in disguise. Further ahead, you find him, the angel. His wings are large and white, but his eyes are red like the sky. He tells you the wings are fake, and that the people behind you are twisted. The world itself is twisted, and it's all because of you. At least you still remember that you have sinned. The angel leads you to the sacred grounds, the Neuro Tower, where the physical form of God is kept. On its deepest level, what was once God now abides, but that God has gone mad. To you, it sounds like crying. To him, it's madness. Your mission is to descend the tower, purify the mad God, and atone for your sins. You'll slay the grotesques as you go, and use your weapon to shoot God. Only you have the power to purify, so you walk through that door to heal your sins. This is the start of our main character's story in a 17-chapter manga called Baroque. I actually read this manga over 2 years ago, and my immediate reaction was, what the blue hell did I just read? The style and story premise felt like they belonged in a video game. While searching for an explanation, I learned that it was a video game made in 1998 titled, well, Baroque, with this manga adaptation following in 2001 as Baroque: The Lost Paradigm. Since then, the game's reputation has grown. It's been praised for its bleak tone and ideas that were ahead of its time, and criticized for things that were very much a product of it. Without help, Baroque is confusing. Without the game's lore, the manga is even more so, but it stuck with me. It struck a chord, and once I understood its full meaning, the horror of the story, and the journey of its main character, it stayed with me far longer than I expected. It's important to have something that stays with you, something that doesn't fade even when everything does. For a lot of us, Bleach was that. It wasn't just about flashy Bankai reveals or cool designs, it was about the weight behind the blade, that sense of purpose, that quiet resolve that keeps you moving forward no matter what. That's exactly what today's sponsor, Bleach Soul Resonance, manages to capture. You're not just watching these stories unfold, you're living them. The game puts you directly in control of your Zanpakuto. Every slash, every clash, every spark feels alive. In this innovative blade clashing system where your movements decide the outcome and your sword feels like an extension of your own will, you can switch seamlessly between characters, chaining attacks into fluid cinematic combos that genuinely feel pulled from the anime. And the lineup is stacked. You can assemble iconic Soul Reapers with an 80 draw guarantee, meaning your favorite character isn't out of reach. It's all about bonds, teamwork, and that drive to protect, and the core of what Bleach always stood for. So if you're ever wanting to experience that feeling again, to draw your Zanpakuto and stand among the Soul Reapers yourself, download Bleach Soul Resonance today and wield the blade of your soul. This video presents a unique challenge. Because the manga is an adaptation, there's a lot left open to interpretation, and the full picture only forms once you understand the lore of the game. So telling the story through the more linear path of the manga and then filling in the gaps afterward seems like the best approach. But first, I want you to have the chance to read this story yourself and or play the game if that interests you. Also, a brief shout out to these videos, which helped me a lot in terms of the context regarding the game itself. Consider this the non-spoiler section, meant to draw you in if the intro didn't already do that. The Baroque manga drawn by Shinsu Ueda, who now illustrates Saint Seiya and has done several other short works, is a trippy, disorienting read. Each chapter feels like walking through a hall of mirrors, deja vu at every turn, progress that feels uncertain, and reflections that blur more with each step. Artistically, it has that late 90s and early 2000s charm I've always loved, and it hooked me when I saw the cover. For a 17-chapter series, it does a remarkable job of peeling back the layers of its protagonist and the Archangel, as well as the other important characters, as much as it can. There are some deviations from the game, but that's expected when adapting something so inherently non-linear. It's like someone making a short manga about Artorias. You can't show everything, so the story breathes through implication. The manga even ends differently, in a way I actually prefer, but I'll save that for later. For now, I'll just say this. Baroque is the kind of story that gives back what you put into it. At worst, it's a stylish, surreal read. At best, it's a haunting meditation on guilt, acceptance, and coping. I am aware that this isn't for everyone. It isn't the most confusing read in the world, but still. Fun fact, when I was a little boy, the first game I remember playing was Ico. I don't know how my mom... Anyways, point is, I'm a little biased, but if you are a fan of the NIE works like I am, this is right up your alley. I can see the benefits to playing the game first or reading the manga first, so ultimately, it's up to you. In the second chapter, the manga continues with the Archangel next to the at the time nameless main character, and in front of the glowing form of God, he is told of the great heat wave which wiped out humanity. The angel refuses to answer his question and just tells him what matters now is how he can atone, and he must shoot God. But as he goes to do so, a strange being appears in front of him and tells him not to shoot. The angel can't see what he's looking at, but concludes it must have been the angel of divine guidance, and that the main character should not listen to that and just shoot. So our main character does, and everything goes dark. He is then told to burn the mission into his brain, as then another voice says that it's not working, with someone else responding, no, he's stabilizing, we can do this. We'll inject him with more CCK and take care of those memories. He'll end up thinking it was just some kind of premonition. I think that's best for him. After all, it's a tough world to live in if you don't have a little Baroque. Alright, we're ready to begin resuscitation. Our main character then wakes up again in the same place as before, and turns around seeing a bulky piece of armor and robes telling him to halt. Any that attempt entry will be killed, and he must go to the Neuro Tower. Now, in the manga, they occasionally refer it to the Nerve Tower due to translations, I believe, but Neuro, it's the same thing. This time, when the Horn Lady reads his thoughts out loud, he is incapable of responding, for he has lost the ability to speak. This time, new people appear, one saying the false angels told him the church was there to protect and support God. The main character then goes searching for the angel, who isn't there until he appears again and notices the MC can't speak. Once again, he gives him the weapon and tells him to go and fulfill the mission. Once again, the gun is picked up as he makes his way to the Nerve Tower once more. In the next chapters, our main character repeatedly descends the tower and encounters different creatures such as hollow baby angels in agonizing pain, known as angelic insects, and a girl called Alice that says she has been waiting for him this entire time. In their conversation, she realizes the MC really doesn't remember, and she shows him that she can't feel pain, and because of that, she is fascinated with the angelic insects. The MC then finds himself once again in the same situation as the beginning of chapter 1, while the scientists led by the Archangel are observing you, repeating the cycle again, but with Alice seeing the seal you placed on yourself before is healed. Alice remarks that the main character is different, and then our MC encounters someone who says he was the member of the Surreal, a nickname given to lesser angels, and that the main character's name is Dextera, otherwise known as 12. So it is worth mentioning that this is a manga-only thing. In the video game, the main character does not have a name, and that's for the sake of immersion, but for obvious reasons that doesn't entirely translate when reading a story. In a flashback, we see the Surreal wanted to know the true intention of God since they weren't believing what the Archangel was telling them, and the Archangel said it was blasphemy, punishing one of the members by putting them in a permanent torture chamber, and with this character saying it's 12's fault, the world is in ruin, and is surprised to know that 12 has seen the Archangel because no one has seen him since the Great Heatwave. The character that confronted 12 is number 47, and along with him and Alice, number 12 continues to descend. A vital moment is encountering a monster that says, "Give me my heart back," and in a dream, 12 sees someone that looks just like him saying the same thing. And then 12 wakes up and is told to eat the heart of the grotesques in order to survive. 12 reaches the bottom once again and shoots God. This time hears, "I wanted to, with you once more." Then turning to Alice and hearing, "Remember me please, if only a little bit." 12 receives something called the Idea Sephira, and with it, they can become the new absolute God and recreate the world, them being the Archangel and 12. But that feels wrong, and 12 is suffering even more. This won't save him, he killed the goddess, so he will use it to bring back the same world once again. Returned to the beginning, but now 12 is starting to remember. It's around this point that the story starts to feel like a loop collapsing on itself. You've watched him die, wake up, descend, die again, and somehow, every time, it feels like he's getting closer to something he's not ready to face. But okay, let's take a deep breath, because it's a lot, and we are maybe halfway. What's really cool about this is that the manga isn't doing this sort of looping narrative just for the hell of it. It's actually an accurate reflection of how the game is played. Baroque is a roguelike action RPG, one of the earliest of its kind, and everything about it revolves around repetition. You enter the Nerve Tower, descend floor by floor, fight these strange and hostile creatures, the grotesques, and you die. A lot. But in Baroque, death isn't really failure, it's progress. It kind of in a way, you have to complete runs, but regardless, every death gives you fragments of information. Every run completed is a step forward, tiny bits of understanding about the world and your own role in it. That's exactly what the manga is recreating. Each time the main character loops, there's this eerie sense of recognition, as if something is carried over that shouldn't be. You might not fully understand what's changing, but the story makes you feel the repetition and confusion that define the game's experience. Over time, both versions start rewarding you for your persistence. Dialogue shifts, environments seem more familiar, and certain characters react differently depending on what you've already seen and what you do. Like the world itself is aware of how many times you've suffered through it. There's also a small but important layer of survival baked into the gameplay, a system that constantly pushes you forward, forcing you to make difficult choices in order to stay alive by consuming the essence of others, which ties more into 12. It's subtle, but it adds to that constant sense of sacrifice and decay and pressure that defines Baroque's tone. So the looping, the unease, the need to keep moving despite not fully understanding why, that's not just a storytelling choice. That is the essence of the game and the challenge of the manga, since admittedly by chapter 8 and 9, you start wondering what is the point, but then major breakthroughs occur. 12 encounters another woman called Eliza, who tells him to give her the idea Sephora, but to not come too close. She is scared of him because he twisted Mother, but she wants the idea in order to fix her and restore the world. 12 says he needs to atone for his sin, and maybe purifying himself will work, but Eliza states that won't because his consciousness isn't there. So first, he needs to change himself. Lovely, even more cryptic shit. This time, when 12 does make it to the bottom, he gets close to God and sees her form. He feels nostalgic and a profound sense of loss. God says don't come closer because she has lost her ability to know suffering. She can read 12's mind as he says that he remembers her from somewhere, and she calls out to him. The angel yells at him not to, and as 12 gets closer, God changes her mind and begins to attack 12, and in her embrace she says that he has to restore her lost pain so that they can become one. 12 dies again. This time, before waking up, he says that one of us will die, and that he killed his brother to preserve his own life, so he will remake everything for him. When 12 fully awakens at the beginning again, he is seen crying. 12 walks past the Archangel thinking that he must not know his intention to fuse with God, and when seeing Alice again, he states he is not him. 12 then encounters the Coriel member that is trapped in torture, Coriel number 1. Number 1 wonders why 12 won't answer him. It couldn't be. Are you number 13 then? Okay, alright, look, it gets more complicated, but I'll keep things in perspective because it is far more of a hassle to piece all of this together if you're playing the video game. We then get a flashback to 15 years ago, before the Neuro Tower became twisted. You're adding them to the Coriel's ranks? Are you sure about this, Coriel number 1? Yes. The younger one on the right will be number 12. The sleeping older brother will be an informal designation, but he'll be number 13. As then, we see twins conjoined at the hip. Now it's time to explain what exactly is going on, since the next chapters delve into some of the lore of the game and the steps taken in-game to achieve the actual ending. Near the end of the 2020s, humanity discovered something strange. Life forms that weren't exactly alive in the way we know it. These creatures, called sense spheres, were actually just sensory extensions of something much bigger, something below the waves of Japan. That something was God. God wasn't just a being, it was a force maintaining reality itself. It corrected distortions in the world, turning the raw data of existence into what became known as the idea Sephora. But humans wanted to communicate with it. We invented a machine that could prove the existence of God, and we decided not to leave it alone. A group called the Coriel began experimenting, creating artificial sense spheres. One researcher, Tenjo Kyushiro, later known as the Archangel, made contact with God's mind and lost himself. He became obsessed with purity and with control. Essentially, he tapped into God and lost his mind. He recorded God's voice as a melody, the Tarantella melody, a hypnotic sound that could drive humans mad and bend them to his will. The Archangel fused the Coriel, government researchers, and corporate scientists into one organization, the Order of Malkuth. Their goal, quote-unquote, protect God. But secretly, they were feeding the world distortions, using tarot cards and artificial sense spheres to warp reality. People touched by these distortions went Baroque, overtaken by delusions. Those who failed the Archangel standards were absorbed into the neural network of sense spheres controlled like puppets. And then he discovered God's weakness: pain. God needed pain to correct itself. Exploiting this, he harvested it from one of his underlings and created the Littles. cherub-like insects that could be used as bullets. Fire them at God, and it would feel agony in a single instant, bypassing its corrective powers. With God incapacitated, the Archangel could finally distort the world freely in order to replace God. But the Coriol fought back. They attempted the Dabar fusion, merging one of their own with God to give it the ability to communicate. They chose a boy, number 12, a conjoined twin whose brother number 13 had been sacrificed to keep him alive. The survivor's guilt was crushing. When the Archangel interrupted the fusion, it triggered the Great Heatwave, a catastrophe that destroyed the entire world. Survivors were fused into grotesque forms, some conjoined, a reflection of what had happened to number 12 and his brother. Reality became toxic and stagnant, and the Archangel, impaled on a sense sphere, became immortal, projecting himself into the world like a ghost, since he cannot die. Afterward, number 12 could no longer speak, but he could purify corrupted matter, reducing it to the idea Sephira. The Archangel cloned him countless times, manipulating memories and emotions, explaining why his eyes twitch and why in-game you consume the essence of others to stop your depleting will to live. These clones would infiltrate grotesque-infested zones using their power to collect Sephira. Each time, 12 literally consumed the hearts of his predecessors, a physical manifestation of his guilt over his brother number 13. The story loops. Over and over, 12 descends the nerve tower, fights grotesques, meets Alice and Eliza, and faces God. If he fuses with God too soon, without restoring her ability to feel pain, he unconsciously recreates the same world trying to bring back his twin. Only by reconciling with himself, accepting his guilt, confronting the loss of number 13, can the cycle truly end. If not, him and his brother will literally swap places over and over again if you try to fuse, and trying to kill God does the same nothing. So, he gives Eliza the idea Sephira to restore her, helps Alice regain her capacity for pain, and only then can God be whole again. This is the portion we see in the manga, along with the backstories to 12, and even the Archangel, where it turns out Eliza in the manga looks like his sister. Perhaps his delusional hatred of God stems from what happened to his sister when they were children. See what being delusional gets you? So the next time you think it's cute, remember you might cause a fucking nuke. But what is finally achieved when you reconcile with yourself and make God whole and then fuse? In the manga, the ending is quiet, almost hopeful even. 12 and Alice are seen holding hands, and the world is seen healing. The distortions remain, but are accepted rather than forcefully purified. In the game, the ending is much bleaker. 12 continues consuming his clone predecessors, battling grotesques in a ruined world trapped in the cycle. That is reality. I see the appeal to both endings, the reality that no matter what you do, the world is what it is and there's no changing it, but I prefer the manga's ending given that it feels more appropriate for the journey we go on with number 12. More of a focus on self-acceptance and how he can only find fulfillment that way instead of the never-ending cycle of atonement for the past. While I do think the manga does a great job of giving you just enough to where learning about the video game makes you intrigued to play it, a lot of props needs to go to the writers for this game because what a sick story and concept. Actively tying these aspects of the character into the game mechanics, and despite the typical defeat God Japanese RPG trope, it adds a bit of a twist with the answer being you must make yourself whole and make God whole before sleeping with her. But despite my preference of the manga ending, the reality is the canon ending is what happens in the game. A never-ending cycle in a destroyed world. Truly a confusing manga about a horrifying game.